Today, we investigate the life of Paul Daniel Ace Frehley, the legendary space ace of Kiss, who passed away on October 16, 2025, at age 74. But this isn't just another celebrity obituary. This is the complete, unvarnished truth about one of rock's most influential and troubled guitarists. Paul Daniel Frehley was born April 27, 1951, in the Bedford Park section of the Bronx, New York, the youngest of three children. His father Carl was an electrical engineer, his mother Esther a homemaker. Music surrounded him, both parents played piano, his father was a church organist, and his siblings played piano and acoustic guitar. At age 13 in 1964, Frehley received an electric guitar as a Christmas present. He never took a single lesson. Instead, he taught himself by listening to the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, and Jimmy Page. That self-taught, unorthodox style would become his signature and his strength. Here's where the story gets interesting. Frehley got his nickname Ace in high school because friends said he was a real ace at getting dates with girls. He attended DeWitt Clinton High School and Theodore Roosevelt High School but was thrown out of both. When his band Cathedral started getting paying gigs, he dropped out completely. Only at his family's insistence did he eventually return and earn his diploma. At 18, Frehley worked as a roadie for Jimi Hendrix, one of his biggest heroes. He later credited guitar playing for saving his life as he struggled with gangs in the Bronx. He told Goldmine magazine he used band gigs as an excuse to avoid gang activities on weekends, saying, "I can't, I have a gig." Ace Frehley was a working-class kid who could have gone down a very different path. Music literally saved him. In late 1972, Frehley's friend spotted an ad in the Village Voice, a band seeking a lead guitarist with flash and ability. The band was the embryonic Kiss, then called Wicked Lester, fronted by Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. Frehley couldn't afford cab fare, so his mother drove him to the audition in Queens. When he showed up in bell-bottom trousers and multicolored shoes, Stanley, Simmons, and drummer Peter Criss initially laughed at him. Then he plugged in and played. Stanley later recalled, "When we all plugged in and played together, there was just magic." Simmons agreed. As soon as he played, it was like, "This is it." Frehley joined in 1973. When they asked his name and he said Paul Frehley, they told him the band couldn't have two Pauls. So he became Ace Frehley officially. But here's something most people don't know. Ace Frehley designed the iconic Kiss logo, those lightning-bolt letters that became one of the most recognizable images in rock history. Kiss adopted theatrical makeup and costumes, each member becoming a comic book character. Frehley created the Spaceman persona, later called Space Ace, inspired by his love of science fiction and the International Space Station. The band's first three albums flopped. Then came Alive, in 1975, a live double album that catapulted them to superstardom, selling over 4 million copies in the U.S. Frehley's guitar solos, particularly on She, became legendary. Kiss became famous for their theatrical stage shows, fire-breathing, blood-spewing, smoke effects, explosions, and Frehley smoking guitars that shot rockets from the headstock. The band refused to be photographed without makeup for years. Frehley told Rolling Stone in 1977, "On stage I'm Ace Frehley, and off stage I'm a kid from the Bronx. I consider myself lucky in a way. Mick Jagger will always be Mick Jagger, but I can take off my makeup and know who I am." While Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley were the primary songwriters, Frehley wrote Kiss classics including Cold Gin, Parasite, Shock Me, and Getaway. He took lead vocals on Shock Me, inspired by a near electrocution in Florida, Talk to Me, and a cover of the Rolling Stones' 2000 Man. Ace Frehley wasn't just a guitarist in Kiss, he was an essential creative force whose playing style defined the band's sound. In September 1978, Kiss did something unprecedented. All four members released solo albums simultaneously. Industry insiders expected Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley to have the biggest hit. Frehley's album became the surprise winner. It featured his cover of New York Groove, originally by Hello, which became a top 20 hit and remains his most famous solo work. The album went platinum. Stanley and Simmons were reportedly jealous. Frehley later said, "There was always a jealousy there. The fact that my solo album, with New York Groove, was the most successful out of the four. I used to get the hottest girls. But success brought problems. Kiss was changing. They released the disco-influenced I Was Made for Loving You in 1979, which alienated fans. Drummer Peter Criss left in 1980, replaced by Eric Carr, who wasn't a partner and had no vote in band decisions. Frehley found himself increasingly outvoted 2-1 by Stanley and Simmons. His participation in the 1981 concept album Music from the Elder was minimal. He hated it. He told Guitar World magazine in 1993, "I remember taking the cassette and smashing it against a wall." Creative control issues, not just substance abuse, drove Frehley away from Kiss the first time. Here's where the story gets really difficult. Frehley's substance abuse escalated dramatically in the early 1980s. He started drinking at age 13 and battled addiction throughout his career. In May 1983, after leaving Kiss, Frehley led police on a 90 miles per hour chase down the Bronx River Parkway in his 1981 DeLorean. He crashed into 4 cars. Miraculously, no one was injured. He was charged with DUI, reckless driving, and leaving the scene of an accident. The incident forced him into a hospital detox unit for 2 weeks and mandatory Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. But it didn't stick. Stanley and Simmons later believed Frehley would fade away and maybe OD or disappear. Frehley himself admitted he'd put those guys through hell. Ace Frehley's addiction nearly destroyed him. For years, he was his own worst enemy. In 1984, Frehley formed his own band, Frehley's Comet, with drummer Anton Fig, who had played on his solo album, bassist John Reagan, guitarist Richie Scarlett, and keyboardist Arthur Stead. After struggling to get a record deal, they signed with Megaforce Records. Their 1987 self-titled debut album included Rock Soldiers, a song about Frehley's arrest with the lyric, "I cried. I am invincible, said I was high above the law, but my only high was just a lie, and now I'm glad I saw." The album went gold and revived his career. But tours with Iron Maiden and Alice Cooper ended early over money disputes, and Frehley relapsed. From 1989 through the mid-90s, Frehley's career stalled. He went through multiple lineup changes. Richie Scarlett was the one constant, staying with him for over 15 years through the chaos. Even when Frehley tried to stay sober, being surrounded by people who partied made it nearly impossible. In 1995, Kiss appeared on MTV Unplugged with the original lineup reuniting briefly. Fan response was overwhelming. This led to the massive 1996 reunion tour, the original 4 in full makeup and costumes. It became the highest-grossing tour of 1996 to 97. In 1998, Kiss recorded Psycho Circus. But here's what they didn't tell the public: Frehley only played on one track, Into the Void. Years later, he revealed the truth: "I wasn't invited to the studio. When you hear Paul and Gene talk about it, they say I didn't show up. The reason I'm not on any of the songs is because I wasn't asked. They tried to make it look like I was absent." Frehley stayed through the farewell tour in 2001 to 2002, performing his last Kiss show at the 2002 Winter Olympics closing ceremony. Then he left for good. Tommy Thayer replaced him, wearing Ace's Spaceman makeup. Even during the reunion, Stanley and Simmons were marginalizing Frehley, setting the stage for decades of bad blood. The turning point came in 2006. Frehley had been on a bender in Vegas with Slash and Eddie Trunk, ending up with 5 girls in his room. He kept drinking for another month. Then his daughter Monique called from Florida. She said, "Dad, I heard you've been drinking again." He tried to justify it. "Yeah, but I haven't done anything else bad, you know? I haven't done any coke yet, I haven't done any pills." Monique's response changed everything. "Dad, it's time to stop. You better call your sponsor and tell them to take you to a meeting." That was Frehley's moment of clarity. He got sober, and stayed sober for the rest of his life. By 2024, he had been clean for 18 years. His sponsor became a lifeline. Frehley talked to him almost daily. He said, "I can't be around people that get loaded or do drugs, and there's no alcohol or drugs allowed in the dressing room when I tour around the bus." In 2019, Frehley even fired his entire band because they were drinking and using drugs around him. "The only way you're gonna get sober, Ace, is if you get rid of all the people around you who get high," his sponsor told him. At meet and greets, fans regularly told him, "Ace, I've been sober 2 years. Ace, I've been sober 5 years." He said, "I'm helping people live longer lives, more fruitful lives, because I'm a power of example." Ace Frehley's sobriety from 2006 until his death was one of the most remarkable redemption stories in rock history. After achieving sobriety, Frehley's solo career flourished. He released Anomaly in 2009, followed by a string of well-reviewed albums throughout the 2010s and 2020s. In 2014, Space Invader hit number 9 on the Billboard 200, making Frehley the only Kiss member to reach the top 10 as a solo artist. He told Guitar World in early 2024, "I'm 72 years old and still sound like I did in the 70s. I get a kick out of the fact that I can do this like I did then. Some will say the fact that my playing hasn't evolved is a problem, but I'd say that's bullshit." His last studio album, 10,000 Volts, was released in February 2024. He was working on Origins Volume 3, a covers album, at the time of his death. Sober Ace Frehley was more successful solo than he ever was in Kiss. In 2014, the original 4 members of Kiss were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It should have been a celebration. Instead, it became a battlefield. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley objected to Frehley and Chris being inducted instead of then-current members Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer. Simmons told Rolling Stone, "Frehley and Chris no longer deserve to wear the paint. The makeup is earned. Just being there at the beginning is not enough." Disagreements prevented the original 4 from performing together. The induction happened, but the rift remained. According to Stanley and Simmons, they invited Frehley to join Kiss for encores during their final 2023 tour, but Frehley declined. Frehley disputed this, saying he never received a real invitation. In response to criticisms from Stanley and Simmons in 2019, Frehley called them control freaks, untrustworthy, and too difficult to work with. He added that they dragged my reputation through the mud on several occasions. The relationship between Frehley and his former bandmates never truly healed. Whatever personal conflicts existed, nobody, not even Stanley and Simmons, could deny Ace Frehley's impact. Guitar legends who cited Frehley as a major influence include Slash, Guns N' Roses; Dimebag Darrell, Pantera; Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine; Mike McCready, Pearl Jam; John Five; Lita Ford; Bret Michaels, Poison. Tom Morello, who inducted Kiss into the Rock Hall, called Frehley his first guitar hero. Mike McCready wrote on X after Frehley's death, "Ace was a hero of mine and also I would consider a friend. I studied his solos endlessly over the years. I would not have picked up a guitar without Ace and Kiss's influence." The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame called him one of the most recognizable and influential guitarists of all time. Guitar World magazine ranked him as the 14th greatest metal guitarist of all time. In a 2024 interview, Frehley said, "Almost every guitar player I meet, at least 75%, if not more, say to me, 'I picked up the guitar because of you.' When I heard Alive, that was it. I decided to pick up a guitar and start learning your songs. That's going to be pretty much my legacy." Ace Frehley inspired an entire generation of guitarists. His legacy is secure. In late September 2025, Frehley fell at his home in New York. Initial statements downplayed it as a minor fall requiring hospitalization. His doctor recommended rest. On October 6, his management announced cancellation of all remaining 2025 tour dates due to ongoing medical issues. The truth was far worse. Frehley had suffered a brain hemorrhage. He was placed on life support with a ventilator. His condition never improved. On the evening of October 16, 2025, his family made the decision to remove life support. Ace Frehley died peacefully, surrounded by family in Morristown, New Jersey. He was 74 years old. His family's statement read, "We are completely devastated and heartbroken." In his last moments, we were fortunate enough to have been able to surround him with loving, caring, peaceful words, thoughts, prayers, and intentions as he left this earth. We cherish all of his finest memories, his laughter, and celebrate his strengths and kindness that he bestowed upon others. The magnitude of his passing is of epic proportions, and beyond comprehension. Reflecting on all of his incredible life achievements, Ace's memory will continue to live on forever. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley issued a joint statement, "We are devastated by the passing of Ace Frehley. He was an essential and irreplaceable rock soldier during some of the most formative foundational chapters of the band and its history. He is and will always be a part of Kiss's legacy." Peter Criss wrote, "With a broken heart and deep, deep sadness, my brother Ace Frehley has passed away. He died peacefully with his family around him. My wife and I were with him to the end as well. A tragic accident ended the life of a man who had finally conquered his demons and was thriving." Frehley married Italian-American actress Jeanette Trerotola on May 1, 1976, during Kiss's peak fame. They had one daughter together, Monique Frehley, the daughter whose phone call saved his life. The demanding schedule, personal challenges, and substance abuse strained the marriage. They eventually separated, but Jeanette remained an influential presence, particularly in raising Monique. After separating, Frehley dated groupie Audrey Hamilton, 1979 to 1981, then Wendy Moore in the late 1990s, who wrote a memoir about dating a rock star struggling with addiction. He was engaged to singer Rachel Gordon in 2010 and later to teacher Laura Cove, whom he dated until June 2024. He never remarried. Throughout everything, Frehley remained committed to his role as a father. Friends noted how much joy Monique brought into his life, and she was often by his side during his health struggles. He is survived by his wife Jeanette, daughter Monique, brother Charles, a classical guitarist, sister Nancy Salvner, nieces Sincere Frehley and Julie Salvner, nephews Sky Frehley and Andrew Salvner, sister-in-law Michelle Ann, and brother-in-law Ron Salvner. Behind the wild rock star image was a devoted father who credited his daughter with saving his life. Here are some facts about Ace Frehley that don't quite fit the wild man image. He has an IQ of 164, genius level. He was a gifted graphic designer who created the Kiss logo and the lightning bolt guitar strap design used throughout the music industry. His high school guidance counselor encouraged him to pursue graphic arts, not music. He was considered to have an unorthodox playing style because he never took lessons, which became his strength, not his weakness. His Space Ace character wasn't just a gimmick, he genuinely loved science fiction and followed developments with the International Space Station. He said in a 2008 interview that he was actually a better musician when not drunk and on drugs and regretted not learning this sooner. Despite being known for wildness, he told Rolling Stone in 1977 he appreciated being able to take off my makeup and know who I am, unlike stars who are always in the spotlight. Ace Frehley was far more complex and intelligent than the drunk guitar player stereotype suggested. So what is the truth about Ace Frehley? He was a working-class kid from the Bronx who taught himself guitar by ear and created one of the most recognizable styles in rock history. He was a creative force whose contributions to Kiss, both musically and visually, were essential to their success, even if he didn't write most of the songs. He was an addict who battled demons for decades, put his friends through hell, endangered himself and others, and nearly destroyed his career multiple times. He was a father whose daughter's love pulled him back from the brink. He was a man who achieved 18 years of sobriety and became an inspiration to thousands struggling with addiction. He was an artist who proved that a Kiss member could be successful solo, more successful than the leaders of the band. He was a guitarist who inspired everyone from Slash to Tom Morello, whose influence echoes through generations of rock musicians. He was a man with a genius-level IQ who designed the Kiss logo but struggled to navigate the business and personal relationships of rock stardom. He was someone who never fully reconciled with his former bandmates but whose place in rock history they could never deny. And on October 16, 2025, at age 74. After finally conquering his addictions and experiencing a career renaissance, he died from injuries sustained in a fall. A tragic ending to a life of extraordinary highs and devastating lows. Ace Frehley was the first original member of Kiss to die. Ace Frehley was human, flawed, brilliant, troubled, triumphant, stubborn, talented, self-destructive, and ultimately redeemed. His life wasn't a fairy tale or a cautionary tale. It was both. It was real. And his music will outlive us all. Rest in power, Space Ace. 1951 to 2025. Subscribe to The Truth About for more investigative deep dives into the lives of music legends. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Comment below, what's your favorite Ace Frehley moment or song? Share your memories and tributes to the Space Ace.